All right, so we've officially entered the part of the year where things get hella interesting, okay? So on the one hand, we're gonna be slowing down a bit, kind of as we do every summer, because we've got several planets which are retrograde, or I should say which will be retrograde, so that's normal. However, July kicks off a new 7 to 8 year cycle where chaos is going to reign. And I don't even say that to be dramatic, nor am I saying that to scare you. The revolution will be televised. And let me tell you, July is going to be one of those months that we will likely never forget. All right. So if you want to know more about the astrology of July and what it has to offer or serve up, stick around. You definitely don't want to miss this. Hello, my loves. As always, I hope that this video finds you well and in excellent spirits. If this is our first time meeting, welcome. My name is Mel. I'm a professional astrologer and sound therapist, and I'm the founder of Divine Feminine Works, where I help people unlock their divinity and discover their magic. And as always, if you are returning, welcome back. So this video is all about the astrology for the month of July 2025. So, like I said in my intro, things are about to get really, really real in July. And again, this is the month where we kick off a new 7 to 8 year cycle because Uranus is changing signs. It's going from stable and stubborn Taurus into mixy and social Gemini. And the energy shift, you're definitely going to feel it. And it's going to feel a little weird because at the same time that we've got this surprising and thunderous Uranus energy, we've got retrogrades. So Saturn, Neptune, and our favorite Mercury will be going retrograde this month, which is going to require us to slow down a bit. And so this may be a month where your nervous system feels a little rattled. You may feel all over the place. Distractions are going to be rampant. Meanwhile, certain areas of life are going to feel a little stagnant and slow and are going to require you to do things over and over and over, depending on where the retrogrades are happening in your chart. All right. So without further ado, let's get into it and see what July has in store for us. All right. So first things first, let's talk about the theme for July. So if you know me, I like to sort of give you a 30,000 foot overview of the astrology for the month in a cute and concise little sentence, right? So the theme for July is head, heart, and healing. So let's begin with head. Now, this is because we have some really dynamic energy in the sign of Gemini. Gemini is ruled by Mercury. Mercury is very mercurial. It's very heady. It's very communicative. It's very logical, rational, right? And so this is going to be a month where we may be in our heads a lot, or this is a month where we really feel the need to express ourselves, whether we're talking a lot, relating to others more social, more out there, more expressive, right? So that takes care of the first part of that theme. The second part is heart. And this has to do with the fact that in the second half of the month, we've got we've got the sun, well, the moon also, but I'll get to that in a second. We've got the sun moving into Leo, as well as the new moon of the month happening in the sign of Leo. So you may feel torn this month because with Venus and Uranus in Gemini, there's a lot going on up here. A lot of talking, a lot of thinking, a lot of strategizing, planning, socializing, but also a lot going on over here too. And your heart is going to be, I don't want to say at odds with, but I feel like your heart is also going to be fighting for your attention this month. Leo is very heart-centered. Leo wants us to live authentically from our hearts and to be childlike and playful. And so while there may be a lot going on, not only in your head and in your mind, but in society as well, take the time for some fun, take the time to be a little less serious. And when we talk about planting new seeds and setting new intentions this month, you're going to want to plant seeds of love, romance, of fun, entertainment, joy, and self-expression. Okay? And then finally, we get to healing. Now, the healing has to do with the retrogrades. Now, I know you're probably thinking retrogrades are anything but healing. If anything, they're very jarring, right? It's like things don't work, things are delayed, all those kind of things. But me personally, I love retrogrades because they give you not only the opportunity to redo things, but to be intentional. We live in a world that's always operating at like 100 miles per hour. Everything has to be fast, it's microwavable, everything is instant. And the beauty of retrogrades is that it is the universe's way of getting you to slow down and to really think about what you're doing. Because if you think about it, we're often running on autopilot, right? We're doing things, not even realize what we're doing, things that have become so routine, things that have become so automatic that we don't even get the opportunity to think about what we're doing and perhaps course correct. And that is definitely the role of retrogrades. Now, this month we've got Saturn, Neptune, and Mercury going retrograde. Okay. And so this is going to give us ample opportunity to slow down, be intentional, and course correct certain things. That's where the healing comes in. Perhaps you have the opportunity to go back to something that didn't work out how you wanted it to. You perhaps get to say things you wanted to say before but couldn't. You get to restructure something that probably wasn't structured correctly before. Or you get to revisit a dream that maybe you put on the back burner. All of those things are up for grabs when we talk about the retrogrades this month. So as you can see, lots going on, lots of dynamic energy. All right, and speaking of which, let's get into the specifics of the astrology for the month and see what exactly the universe is talking about. All right, so let's begin at the beginning. And so the month kicks off on July 4th, of all days, with Venus entering the sign of Gemini. Now, Venus spent the month of June in her home sign of Taurus. So Venus was doing her thing. Her energy was super potent. We were all about material things and looking good and being comfortable and secure and grounded. Venus in Taurus was very grounded. She was very practical almost, and really concerned with things that are actually going on with reality. Venus is going to get a turbo boost of energy when she goes into the sign of Gemini. Now, remember, Gemini is mercurial, so it's kind of all over the place. I like to call it busybody energy. And Venus in Gemini wants to do the most when it comes to thinking and expressing Venusian like things, namely love and money, or relationships and money, I should say, right? Venus also represents fairness and things like that. But if we're talking about like a higher level sort of analysis, relationships and money work for what we're talking about right now. Okay. And so Venus in Gemini, she really wants to express herself, express her love, but not necessarily in a deep sort of way. Gemini can also be sort of superficial and not in a bad way. It's just that Gemini moves so quickly, it doesn't have the time to get deep, right? Gemini and Scorpio, for instance, kind of don't understand each other. Scorpio wants to take you to the depths of hell, and Mercury, or should I say Gemini, is just skating on top of the water, right? All over the place. So, Venus and Gemini could probably have you feeling very social. Remember, Gemini is ruled by Mercury. Mercury is kind of how we relate to people. And with Venus being the sign of relationships, relating to people, speaking to people, being social is definitely a thing when Venus is in Gemini. Now, Venus and Gemini could also have us thinking a lot about Venusian things. So, it could have us thinking about money, could have us thinking about relationships, could have us planning, it could have us trying to learn more about those things as well. Gemini is also the ruler of learning, or it's the sign of learning and teaching. So, when it comes to Venusian like topics, right, maybe there's something regarding relationships that you want to learn more about, right? Or maybe there's some sort of how to, get a new income stream, right? That could be something that Venus and Gemini would kind of push you to want to do. But by and large, Venus and Gemini wants us to relate to each other. But again, I want you to think of this Venus and Gemini relation or relationship as very friendly and social. It's giving friend zone. It's giving, okay, I met you at a party and small talk, but it's not necessarily deep romance. It's definitely not deep romance. It's definitely not substantive. It's more cordial, friendly, and social. All right. And so you may find that come July, you want to go out more. You want to talk to people more. It's definitely giving we outside energy, for lack of a better phrase. Okay. Next up on that same day, we've got Neptune going retrograde in Aries. And this is where we slow down as well. So I want you to take a good look at your natal chart and see where Aries is. This is the area of life that's really going to slow down for you because Neptune and Saturn will be going retrograde there this month. Now, when I say slow down, I mean that. And I'm very intentional about saying that because Aries can be a very impulsive and speedy kind of sign. It wants things now, it wants to do things now, it always wants to take action. But when we have two sort of heavy hitter planets going retrograde in the sign of Aries, expect physical delays, expect lethargy, like being a lack of energy, right? Expect things to go a lot slower than you would like them to. And again, that is by design. The universe wants you to slow your ass down and wants you to be intentional about the things that you're doing, that you're thinking, that you're desiring, all of those things. Now, when we talk about Neptune retrograde in Aries, this could be about starting something new, but based off of an old dream or a fantasy. Neptune is otherworldly and it rules our dreams, our fantasy, and our imagination. And so, in a sign like Aries, Neptune wants you to have new dreams, new goals, right? New fantasies, right? But if it's retrograde, then we're thinking about things from the past. So this is good because it kind of gets you to go back into your mental notes, your mental storage, and think about the things that you were once passionate about, the things that you once wanted, and reignite those things, those dreams, those desires, even. So perhaps this is the time of year where you could reignite something that you're perhaps very passionate about. This could be the opportunity you've been waiting for to really change things in your life. If you want to implement new things, 2025 has definitely been the year for that. But sometimes the best new things are things from the past. Perhaps that we've tinkered with, perhaps that we've revamped, but nonetheless, Neptune retrograde in Aries will allow you to re examine and remember some dreams in the past that you were perhaps very passionate about. Thereafter, on July 7th, we have the major astrological event of July, which is Uranus moving into Gemini. Okay, so I talked about this before chaos, point blank, period. But chaos is always my phrase that I love is chaos breeds creation. So, as much as this could be a chaotic time, could also be a very creative time. And again, it's sort of this energy of change. So, I'm doing a dedicated video on Uranus and Gemini, so I'm not going to go too much into it now. However, I like to call Uranus the hand of God. The reason why it's chaotic is because we have no control. It's the universe's way of shifting things, often surprisingly, often that make no logical sense, but that is necessary nonetheless. And so, wherever Gemini is in your natal chart, this is going to be an area of life that probably feels out of control beginning now. Okay. Now, a Uranus transit, or should I say, Uranus going through a sign takes 7 to 8 years. And so, we're starting a new 7 to 8 year cycle this month. And so, again, it's going to be an area of life, Gemini, I should say, in your natal chart, that feels chaotic, where you experience surprises. But what I love about Uranus and Gemini is the ability for mental breakthroughs. This is huge because thoughts create things. And again, 2025 is one of those years where you could really affect a change in your life. And Uranus and Gemini is helping you do that. It's helping you be less narrow minded, less conservative in your thinking. And when I say conservative, I don't mean like political party, although it could be that. But it could help you take the brakes off of your mind, see things from a completely different perspective. The way that Uranus works, it's like, have you seen or do you remember in cartoons when like a bear or something would be in the woods and a trap has been set? And as soon as the bear steps into this rope in a circle, the rope tightens. The bear is sort of put upside down and hoisted up to this tree, right? That's kind of how Uranus works. Uranus will put you on a timeout suddenly. Uranus will open your eyes mad wide suddenly. Uranus will crush something, break something, birth something in a very erratic sort of way to get you to see things differently. Uranus is the planet of breakthroughs. And again, in a sign like Gemini, it's mental breakthroughs. Could also be communication breakthroughs. Now, this doesn't have to be doom and gloom and craziness chaos. Perhaps this chaos is getting you to learn new things, perhaps that you never would have learned before, have conversations you never would have had before, hear things that you've never heard before in the best way possible. I mean, strap in because, again, the way that the universe does this is by surprise. But the ability to break through is at an all time high once Uranus enters Gemini. And again, this is going down on July 7th. And if you want to know more, watch for my Uranus in Gemini video, set notifications so you definitely don't miss it. All right. Okay, so the next up on July 10th, we have the full moon of the month, which is happening in the sign of Capricorn. Okay, so keep in mind, while all this dynamic energy is happening, right? We've got Venus moving into Gemini, Uranus moving into Gemini, Neptune going retrograde. The sun is still in the sign of Cancer. So we're feeling all the feels while our mental capacities are being lit. Okay. And so, with this full moon in Capricorn, remember, full moons illuminate and culminate. And so, in a sign like Capricorn, the full moon is all about recognition, particularly recognition for a job well done. Capricorn is success driven. It's all about running the race and reaching the finish line. It's all about taking a bow at the end of hard work done. It's about recognition after working so hard because you've earned it. Okay. So this full moon in Gemini could have you getting recognition, have you crossing the finish line after a long time. It could also show you something that has kept you stuck. Capricorn is ruled by Saturn, and I want you to think of Saturn as like icy, as something within like an ice block. Capricorn has hard earned rewards because the road to success has been rocky. It's been paved with obstacles, with challenges and delays. So the fact that you made it to the finish line is actually a big deal. But with the full moon in Capricorn, it could really show you where you've been blocked, where you've been stagnant, and where you've been challenged, or where you're currently being challenged. And by being able to see it, you can overcome it and make your way to the finish line. So the full moon of the month is going to be a little difficult, I'll say. Capricorn energy is not easy, but it can be extremely rewarding if you use the energy to your advantage. The next up on July 13th, we have Saturn going retrograde in Aries. Now, one thing that I want to point out to you, every summer, all of the outer planets go retrograde. So that's Pluto, Neptune, Saturn. A little later in the year, Uranus does too, but clearly Uranus is moving forward at this point. So these two retrogrades, namely Saturn and Neptune, it's not something that we feel too viscerally, but it is energy that you can take advantage of. And remember I said, in the theme, these retrogrades are about healing, okay? Now, Saturn in Aries wants you to get to work on something new in a very dynamic sort of way, something that you're passionate about. You can start putting in the work to have it. Now, much like the energy of the full moon in Capricorn, Saturn retrograde in Aries is going to have you examine obstacles and blockages and perhaps bad habits or patterns that are preventing you from starting something new, that are preventing you from creating a new system or a new structure. Now, Saturn and Neptune are going to be retrograde for a little while. So it's not something that, you know, one and done or you start it now and then end next week. But this is going to be the time when you really want to get intentional. And the universe is going to give you ample opportunity to see where you've been stuck, to see where you've been stagnant. However, much like anything else, it's up to you to take advantage of it. So again, you're going to want to look at wherever Aries is in your natal chart. This is going to let you know where things are going to slow down, where you need to re-examine things before you can start something new. All right. And then thereafter, on July 18th, we have our favorite Mercury going retrograde in the sign of Leo. Okay. And so Mercury goes retrograde 3 to 4 times a year. This is nothing new to us. Okay. And with Mercury retrograde in Leo, this is really about re examining your passion, but most importantly, re examining your heart and yourself. Okay. Leo is all about self expression, and self expression has a lot to do with authenticity, with our hearts. I find that when we have any sort of retrograde energy in Leo, we're really tasked with seeing and understanding what's actually in our hearts. And this can be a little difficult because we don't exactly live in a society that really values or really encourages moving from your heart, especially now. I don't even want to get into that. That's a whole other thing. However, Mercury retrograde in Leo is definitely going to have you examining this. Now, since Leo has a lot to do with romance, this could be a situation where past romantic issues, past romantic lovers come back around. That's always fun. Leo also has to do with children. So issues regarding children, whether children that you have, children, issues regarding children like conception and things like that could also come back around. However, what I love about Mercury retrograde in Leo the most is that it can really reignite your creativity. Leo is a very creative sign. Whenever you're talking about heart, you're talking about creativity, among other things. But with Mercury retrograde in Leo, it's like, not only what are you passionate about, but what can you create? Now, understand, when I say creative, I don't necessarily mean things like the arts, although that can be included in this. But it's more so, what can you give? What can you conceive? What can you give birth to? How do you want to express yourself? Creations are a reflection of our own selves. That's why Leo rules children, because children are a reflection of us, especially if we birth them or help create them, right? So use Mercury retrograde in Leo, which will last about 3 weeks, to reignite your creativity and to think about how you want to express yourself in this world. Okay. With Venus also in Gemini and wanting to express and relate to people, the Leo energy this month, namely Mercury retrograde there, the sun there, the new moon there, expressing ourselves authentically and from the heart is definitely going to be a thing. So keep that in mind. On July 22nd, we have the sun entering the sign of Leo, heralding Leo season. Okay, Leo season is quintessential summer energy, right? It's playful, it's sunny, it's warm, it's passionate, it's creative. And so when the sun goes into Leo, this is how we feel, or this is the energy that we can embody. So look to see where Leo is in your natal chart. This will let you know what area of life is going to be activated and energized, perhaps reinvigorated as well. But it's honestly an excellent opportunity to express yourself, to be authentically you, to shine. The ruler of Leo is the sun. And so when the sun is in its home sign of Leo, we shine unapologetically. We don't care who we blind or anything like that. All right. It really beckons you to embrace your uniqueness and allow yourself to express that uniqueness in the world. Okay. Thereafter, on July 24th, we have the new moon of the month, which is happening in the sign of Leo as well. And so when it comes to things about that you're passionate about, things having to do with fun, entertainment, things that you want to create, how you want to express yourself, you're going to want to plant those seeds at that new moon in Leo, okay? And this is honestly one of my favorite new moons of the year because it allows you to have fun. It allows you to not take life so seriously. And most importantly, it allows you to be main character. So it allows you to be slightly selfish. Not in the way that Aries would be, but Leo can be a little selfish as well. It's regal, it's main character energy, and that's the energy that we can infuse into our intentions at that new moon. So that should be definitely something to look forward to. And then finally, we close out the month on July 30th with Venus making another move, this time into the sign of Cancer. So she's going to be leaving the chaos of Gemini and move into Cancer, where things are going to be a little slower and things are going to be a little softer. So rather than be all up in our heads, we're really going to be moving into our emotions, and our emotions with respect to feeling loved, feeling accepted, right? To feel like we are giving and receiving, right? Feeling safe in reciprocity are definitely going to be things when Venus moves into Cancer. Now, this could also highlight your feminine relationship. So whether it's the relationship with your mother, your wife, your girlfriend, your female friends, right? That motherly nurturing energy, even as expressed in men, is going to be highlighted when Venus moves into Cancer. Could also be kind of emotional, a little moody, and very intuitive. Whereas Venus in Gemini really wanted you to be logical about relationships, let's say, Venus in Cancer wants you to be emotional and intuitive and a lot softer. It's a great transit to begin or continue to nurture relationships. As difficult as that may be, nurturing relationships requires a certain amount of emotional vulnerability. It also requires a certain amount of patience, devotion, and dedication. Okay. So it could be not necessarily the best feel good transit, but it's important nonetheless when we talk about nurturing and developing the most important relationships in our lives. All right, so that's the astrology in a nutshell for the month of July. If you want to know how July is going to affect you, among other things, then you'll definitely want to consider my signature coaching service, which is called The Mirror. So this isn't just a natal chart reading, although I do offer those. The link will be in the description box below. But The Mirror takes into account a lot of different things, namely the upcoming transits for you, your natal chart, your progressed chart. It is a service that provides a full-length mirror to your life. Now, as scary as that may sound, it's necessary. You kind of need to know where you are before you can go forward, before you can move forward. And the mirror helps you do just that, among other things. So if you're interested, you'll want to schedule a clarity call. The link is in the description box below. And again, it is a journey, not just a reading. So if you're looking for something robust that can help you affect change in your life, the mirror is where it's at. Information in the description box below. All right, so now that we've discussed the astrology, the themes, all that, let's get into some practical tips on how to use the energy of July to your advantage. All right, so of course, rather than just say, okay, here's the astrology, good luck, I like to tell you how to best use the energy. So these are 3 tips that you are going to want to take into consideration regarding the astrology for July. So first, slow down. The universe is going to require this of you anyway, and to be honest, you're probably going to feel like doing this. Uranus in Gemini, chaos, lots going on, lots of distractions, things feeling like they're moving at rapid pace, okay? Especially mentally. This could be one of those transits where your mind is on overdrive, or other people's minds and mouths are on overdrive. So it could just be sensory overload and just a lot. So apart from the desire to want to slow down because of that, we've got 3 retrogrades this month, which is going to require you to slow down and be intentional. And remember, slowing down is not a bad thing. I think that society conditions us to think that it is. Now, there is a difference between slowing down and being stagnant. Stagnancy, I should say, is a whole other topic, but you'll know, right? But if you've been going at 100 miles per hour, you're going to need to slow down. Otherwise, you will burn out. And this is one of those months where there might be instances of going full speed and then stopping, or going full speed and then slowing down. Remember that slowing down is a good thing. It gets you to conserve your energy, and it allows you to be intentional about what you're doing. So try not to curse the universe when things aren't happening in the time frame that you would like, when there are delays, when there are obstacles, where things just seem to be moving at a snail's pace. That is by design and it's for your highest good. Please believe that. Okay? Next, be receptive to change. And this is a big one. Remember, I said Uranus and Gemini, it's going to jailbreak your mind. Okay? It's mental breakthroughs and the like. And one of the worst ways to be during this type of transit is closed-minded and stiff. Anything that is stiff and unmovable will break in this particular transit, okay? And so you got to be flexible, you got to be adaptable, and you have to be willing to pivot and move, perhaps sometimes at a moment's notice. Now, that's not always desirable, right? A lot of times we like to be grounded and rooted before we make any changes. We want to feel stable, we want to feel secure before we do things differently. Sometimes that's not always how it works, right? The universe has its own the universe, there's a method to the universe's madness. And sometimes it will literally shut a door in your face abruptly, only to open up another one that's even better. Or something that you thought would take 6 months could literally take 6 weeks, right? Or even 6 days. And while that could be jarring, if you anticipate change and if you're open to whatever the universe is trying to change or trying to show you, this month and this transit will be a lot, I'm not going to say easier, but things will run a lot more smoothly. Otherwise, if you are resistant, if you're stuck in the mud, if you're narrow-minded, you will break. Point blank, period. So keep that in mind. And then finally, listen to and follow your heart. Now, this may feel a little difficult because we've got all of this Gemini energy still with Venus and Uranus, which is a big one. Your mind may be trying to commandeer all of your attention and effort. However, with Leo season starting, with Mercury retrograde in Leo, and with a new moon in Leo, listening to your heart is going to be imperative. So do not ignore it. Not only should you not ignore it, but certain things don't need to be rationalized. And I know that that can feel strange or even scary, right? How many times have we followed our hearts and fallen flat on our faces or been disappointed or been rejected? It's like, you don't want to do that again. But Leo energy is like, if you don't follow your heart, you're going to be miserable. And you don't want that. Also, it provides a great balance. Again, with all of that Gemini energy, there's a lot of this going on, a lot of this, a lot of this. Okay. Dropping down into your heart space balances out all of that heady kind of energy. So do it. Even if it feels scary, even if it feels strange, be willing to at least listen to your heart. Okay. Following it could be a whole other thing entirely, but at least listen to it. That'll be a good start. All right. So July's pro tip is to rewrite the story you're telling yourself or rewrite the story that you're telling about yourself. So I want you to picture this. We've got dynamic energy in 2 fire signs this month. And within both of these fire signs, we've got retrograde planets. So in the sign of Aries, we've got Saturn and Neptune retrograde. And then in the sign of Leo, we've got Mercury retrograde. Now, retrogrades are all about reminiscing, remembering, but one of the more important re's of retrograde is rewriting. Now, both Aries and Leo have a lot to do with the self. Aries is literally the sign of the self. It's the sign of the body. It's the sign of your self-identity. And Leo is the sign of your self-expression. So when you put Aries and Leo together, it's not only who you are, what you embody, but how you express who you are and what you embody. And with all of these retrograde planets, you have the ability to rewrite your story. Now, you could rewrite the story that you tell about yourself. This could be the story you tell yourself. This could be the story you tell yourself about yourself, or this could be the story that you tell other people about yourself. Think of it this way. Maybe you're someone who's always said, I'm not creative. Like, I don't know how to paint or dance or draw or whatever, right? And so you think that that means that you're not creative. But allow this retrograde, particularly Mercury retrograde in Leo, to reignite and help you remember that creativity is not just the arts. It's about how you express your uniqueness, how you create things that are an expression of that uniqueness. So rather than saying, oh, I'm not a creative person, maybe you are a creative problem solver. Maybe you're someone who is creative at accounting or something else that typically society doesn't deem as creative. But either way, you want to be intentional about rewriting your story. Whether it's, again, what you tell yourself, like in your own mind, or even how you present externally or what you tell people about yourself. This is a great month to reinvent yourself. Now, there are going to be some curveballs with Uranus and Gemini, but you still have ample opportunity with the retrogrades and with slowing down to rewrite your story. So this is something that I think will be helpful and perhaps something you want to do this month. Okay, you are going to want to start every single day with a one sentence affirmation that begins with, I am becoming the version of me who ... So again, you're going to want to wake up every day and reaffirm the new version of you by saying, I am becoming the version of me who, and then fill in the blank, right? Now, it doesn't have to be that exact sentence, but every day you want to reinforce this new version of you. You want to reaffirm that, whether you're reaffirming it mentally, verbally, or even expression-wise, right? But take the time to get your new story together and start embodying this new version of you. It's a great way to use the energy, and it's a great way to move forward in this year when change is everything. All right, my loves, so that concludes this video on the astrology for the month of July 2025. I sincerely hope that you were able to get at least one important piece of information that you can use going into July and beyond. All right, if you want to find out more about my signature coaching service, The Mirror, book a clarity call with me. Link is in the description box below. If you want just a regular natal chart reading, I've also got you covered. The link to that is also in the description box below, and everything else that's important will be found down there too. All right, my loves, thank you so much for tuning in. Have an amazing July, and I will see you in my next video. Take care.